KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner, in today for Erin O'Toole. One of the most unusual stories in recent memory about Colorado's oil and gas industry popped up in the town of Erie. It was actually about what happens underneath Erie. A company wanted to access some underground oil and gas located beneath the town. But Erie has more than 30,000 residents, so putting a fracking operation in the middle of neighborhoods and schools wasn't going to be very popular. Instead, the company, called Extraction Oil and Gas, proposed a plan to do what's called horizontal drilling. They would set up their equipment on the outskirts of Erie, in unincorporated Weld County, which has fewer restrictions on drilling, and then drill horizontally for as far as 5 miles to the west to tap into the oil and gas beneath the town. It kind of reminds me of that scene in the movie There Will Be Blood, where Daniel Day-Lewis plays an oil baron who talks about drilling into someone else's oil claim.
My straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
That drilling company wanted to drink that milkshake underneath Erie. But some residents in the town have pushed back, saying they don't want to live on top of an oil and gas operation. And now, state regulators have gotten involved. KUNC's Ray Solomon has been following the story. She's here to explain what might happen next and what it says about how fracking is regulated at the local level. Ray, welcome to In The NoCo.
Hi, Brad.
Let's talk about how this drilling operation would work. What is horizontal drilling and why is it controversial in this case, Ray?
Brad, horizontal drilling is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It allows drillers to access reserves where they wouldn't otherwise be able to drill. And that's one of the reasons it's controversial. It allows drilling to expand where it wouldn't have worked before, and is controversial for a lot of the same reasons that fracking is controversial, just because it increases fossil fuel extraction, and there's a lot of people who don't want that.
I can imagine the oil and gas company saying, we know what we're doing, and you'll never even know the drilling is happening because it's more than a mile underground. What have you heard from the drilling company that proposed this?
Well, I reached out to Extraction Oil and Gas, but they didn't respond to my interview request. But publicly, they've said that they have the technology to do this type of drilling safely.
How common is it to drill a well that extracts oil or gas from 5 miles away, like in this case? That seems like a really long well bore.
Yeah, it does. You know, it's not unheard of, but it is not common at all, which is part of that controversy. Just 2 years ago, the average length of horizontal wells was less than 2 miles. Very, very few of them were longer than that. But the technology is constantly advancing. They're getting longer all the time. So a well this long has been done elsewhere. It's been done in Alaska, Pennsylvania, but it has not been done in Colorado before.
Ray, fracking operations are often controversial. People have concerns about chemicals in the air and about water quality near fracking operations. Why was fracking in this particular operation controversial?
A lot of it comes down to the health concerns around this. So that's really tied to air quality. At the macro level, we have climate concerns. When you frack, when you drill, you release methane. And then with this project in particular, the horizontal wells are going to be drilled. They're planned to be drilled through an area that already has a dense field of vertical wells that are old and abandoned. So there's some concerns about how the horizontal wells will interact with those old vertical wells.
Weld County officials approved the drilling site, which sits in unincorporated Weld County. But Erie has thousands of residents, lots of neighborhoods, and a few schools. And Erie residents pushed back. Tell us a little bit about that pushback, Ray.
Yeah, the residents pushed back in really the only way they could. That's, through comments to state regulators, showing up for public hearings, writing op-eds. And I have a little sampling of what they had to say.
Anything short of a full denial would be an insult and a slap in the face to everybody who lives in Erie.
I believe that extraction is running out of places to find oil and gas resources within the Front Range. And I believe that they chose to go west into Boulder County as I don't know how else to say it, a middle finger to Boulder County and their regulations.
Residential drilling shouldn't be a thing. Either you can have a thriving community or you can have an oil field, but you can't do both.
We just heard from Erie residents Skylar Weitzel, Sammy Carroll, and Christian Van Woudenberg. Of course, Extraction Oil and Gas, the company that's trying to drill these wells, says that they have the technology to navigate that underground terrain safely.
Ray, the state's Oil and Gas Commission has said the plan should not move forward in its current form.
That's right.
But they also didn't say this kind of drilling is illegal. Explain the reasoning of the state's oil and gas commissioners.
Yeah, the commissioners said during public deliberations that horizontal drilling across jurisdictional lines like this, it's politically complicated and controversial, but it does not appear to be illegal. They decided to halt this application because the drilling site proposed is just too close to home. Some are existing. Most of them they're just proposed. They aren't built yet. And the company hasn't yet proven that they can't avoid those negative impacts to the surrounding community. They asked the company to go back and analyze a different site that is within the town of Erie. That would give the town more jurisdiction over this project, which could be helpful. But it's important to note that the company, Extraction Oil and Gas, could always analyze that alternative site, come back to the commissioners, say, oh, that site didn't work. And because they technically tried to avoid the negative impacts to the community, they would be able to check off that box, and that would clear the path to approve that original site. So the site is certainly not off the table yet.
So basically, it's fairly likely that this could still move forward.
Absolutely. It's really hard to say at this point. And the timeline is very unclear. It really depends on how determined the company is to pursue this project and jump through all the potential loopholes and how many hurdles they encounter.
Ray, what do you think this story says about a city or town's ability to decide whether it wants fracking near its homes?
In a nutshell, if you live on a border area, you're pretty vulnerable. If the next town over has looser restrictions, they might be able to come into your area.
Ray, thanks so much for checking in with us today.
Anytime.
If you want to read more on that story, we'll have a link to Ray Solomon's coverage for KUNC, as well as articles from our partners at Boulder Reporting Lab and the Colorado Sun. By the way, if you like this interview, we have many more thoughtful, enlightening conversations from In The NoCo that you can check out. In the past few weeks, we published interviews on how Denver could turn high-rises into attainable housing and help solve Colorado's housing shortage. We talked with a scientist who told us why Colorado needs a new strategy for replanting its forests after a wildfire. And we talked with a horticulture expert about how to help trees in your yard survive those brutal Colorado winters. You can check out any of our interviews from In The NoCo at KUNC.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner. Thanks for listening.